What up, what up? Winbush here, and today I'm excited to talk about what I think might be one of the most important tools to come to motion graphics in a very long time, and that's Project Avalanche for Unreal Engine 5. Now, the reason I'm really excited about Project Avalanche, for those that don't know, it is basically a tool set built all inside of Unreal Engine 5 that is with designers in mind, and more in particular, motion graphics artists. And so, like myself, I'm typically a Cinema 4D user and an After Effects user, and this kind of combines both worlds into one. And so with Project Avalanche, what you're going to be able to do, you're going to be able to combine 2D assets with 3D assets, all running in real time if you choose to, or you can render them out if you need to deliver them for maybe a TV show package or a movie like I typically do. Now, I've been fortunate enough this past year to be in the alpha beta for Project Avalanche, so I got to see firsthand how powerful this is, and even some of the top studios like ESPN got to use it for production. So if you watched the Rose Bowl parade earlier this year, that was all Project Avalanche, and even most recently, the ESPY Awards, that was all done with Project Avalanche. Then also the Fortnite League stuff that just premiered. So for those that are wondering if Project Avalanche can actually be used for client projects, I think that answered that question right there. But I have to give a big shout out to Andy Blondin. He's the product head of Project Avalanche for Epic Games. He gave me special permission to give you guys a first-hand look at Project Avalanche in its current state. But before I dive into the fun stuff, I have to give a special shout out to today's sponsor of this video, because I got to pay the bills, right? But it's Ankbit. They sent out these noise canceling headphones that you currently see me using right now. These are pretty dope. They're only like a little bit over $100. I'll leave a link down below for anybody that's interested. But as you can see here inside the video is basically your typical noise canceling headphones, and they sound good. Like, you can plug them in with the USB cord, as I typically like to do, or you can use it wireless as well. Once again, special shout out to Ankbit. Thank you guys for sponsoring today's video. Now, I'm just going to jump right into it. I think the first tool set that I'm going to show you guys is going to get After Effects artists extremely excited. So a Project Avalanche pulled up right now, let's take a look at the geometry tool set. As you can see, we just brought in solids here. You have complete control over these solids in here. You could go through, you could change out the shape all on the fly. You could change out the bevel, and you just have complete control, just like you would inside of After Effects. Like, for any motion graphics artist, this is nothing new, and they built this with motion graphic artists in mind. You can see that we could go through, take these 2D assets and actually make them 3D. So you have 2D items working in a 3D space, and you can actually take those 2D assets and bevel them out inside of your 3D objects there as well, which you can see from this example how powerful that would be. Now, moving on, we can actually bring SVG files into Project Avalanche. For those that aren't familiar, you can make these in something like Adobe Illustrator or other platforms as well, but you export out an SVG file with your layer stack, you bring it into Project Avalanche, and you can actually bevel these out, which gives you complete control over your logo there, or whatever you want to bring in. And so typically, like me, I would bring this in, extrude it out, and it also saves that color space there as well, which I thought was really cool. So if you get like a client logo from somebody and you have to stick within that color palette, it's going to save all that information for you. Or if you want to get creative, you can change out the textures there as well, but you have complete control over the SVG stack on the side of Project Avalanche, and this is all running in real time, so you can see the potential for having 2D assets and 3D assets all running together. And then if I take a look here inside of the modifiers, we can have a 3D asset and bring in just a 2D asset there as well. Maybe add like a little extrusion to it. You could just bring it through, cut out the different bevel from that 3D object, and you can see how creative you could get there on the fly. We have a couple of deformers in here as well. We have a bend deformer and we have a taper deformer, but you could just play with some of these modifiers and really get creative. Now, I want to take a look at the timeline as well, because I think this is something that is very important for motion graphics artists trying to jump into Unreal. I know previously they got a little bit confused when trying to figure out that timeline aspect of it, and so it did get modified here for Project Avalanche. So if you look down here at the bottom, you can see the timeline. It looks like something that will be very familiar to us, and then you also have control over the different attributes for the control and the property value. So you could go through on the fly, change out the color aspect of it, and then they also have something in here that's called auto size text, which I think is really cool, because you could go through and make a parameter for the size that you want your text to kind of engulf in, and you could go through and you could change out that text, and it's all going to stay within the bounds of those parameters that you set. So you can make a really long name or you can make a short name. You could go through, make sure that everything's going to be lined up, and that way if you pass over the project to somebody else, maybe that's on the team, or if you're passing it over to an agency, they could go through and they can manipulate these on the fly So let's say you're working on a broadcast package that's going to be playing live, and the agency that's going to be running the live broadcast doesn't want to have to mess around with a lot of parameters. You can make a tool set that they can then just go through, maybe make a few little adjustments to that tool set, and they're not going to have to worry about how the end result's going to look because you set all those parameters up ahead of time, and there's no blueprint needed at all. There's no program or anything. This is all basically set up within Project Avalanche, easily for anybody to jump into. And just taking a more close-up look at the auto size modifier, as you can see, we have a name in here right now. Just switching out the name, and it's all within our bounding box. So this could be extremely powerful if you're doing any type of full screen graphics or lower thirds. You can see how we have our bounding boxes in there, and as we type out the name, everything is going to stay exactly the way that it's supposed to be designed. And this is going to really help out on the back end for just having a production crew work on this type of stuff. And then also for the text, we have some modifiers in here as well, very similar to what you would have here inside of After Effects, but we could do this with 2D text or 3D text. So you can add a wiggle animator, you can have it bounce, and these are some of the presets that you might see inside the text modifier inside of After Effects, but there's a couple of those there too inside of Project Avalanche, which you could get really creative, just having transitions in and transitions out and just bringing your text to life. And if you're wondering how this looks like in actual production, we actually have an example from the SV broadcast package right here. This is going to be a lower third example here. So you can just see it playing out. This is actually what was produced for the broadcast package, but you can see we have our typical lower third down there. Go out, you could change the color to anything that you want there on the fly. Then you can also go through and just change out the text as well. So if you have maybe like a longer name, it's actually going to modify that stack there on the fly and keep your design aspect as it's supposed to be. Now, a lot of designers are used to a layer-based system. So if you're using like Illustrator or Photoshop or even After Effects, like myself, you're used to that layer-based system whenever you're doing your material stacking, which that was actually added in Project Avalanche here as well with us designers in mind. So these are called dynamic materials. As you can see on the right hand side, you have your layer-based stack and you have your attributes window down there, but it looks very familiar to Photoshop, right? Like you have the lock there, you can change out the alpha channel there on the right side. On the left hand side, you're going to see your actual image, but you can actually bring in a whole bunch of different 2D images. You can stack them on top of each other. You also have the modifier stacks there as well, but this right here is showing you how you could go even further and you can even clone those materials there on the fly, which you could get really creative. And the cool thing is these are 2D elements and they're working in the 3D space. But you can see as right here, we have this little gradient there, a sphere gradient, and you could go through to the blend stack and you can add an add, which is very familiar to us. And boom, right there on the fly, we have an add modifier there. That's in 3D space as well. You can go through and stack those inside of your stack there on the right hand side. And this is very familiar to us. You could go through individually and mess with the opacities over there as well. And speaking of opacity, you could take the overall stack too and add a modifier to that. So you're able to cut out the alpha channel with maybe a gradient or maybe a more solid stack there as well. And you can animate all of this within the timeline. So you can see how powerful this material stacking is going to be for motion graphics artists, because everything is built for you. Like you can look right here, this is the blueprint behind it, but you don't have to know any of the blueprinting. Everything is laid out for you. So you just laid out your material stacks as you're used to working in your other programs, and everything is going to feel very fluent for you. Now, the most powerful thing about Project Avalanche, of course, is running in real time. But to me, what I think is the most impressive is how we can mix the 2D elements with the 3D elements. And not only that, we do have cloners inside there too that will let us take it to the next level. So some of the cloners that you have access to would be, of course, your grid, your sphere, your line, your circle, your mesh. And of course, all of them are going to be able to be randomized if you want to. You have a lot of parameters down there inside the attributes panel, and you have your different modes, you know, like your random mode and your blend mode, but also you're going to have a couple of effectors that you could go in there and manipulate everything with as well. So your typical effectors, your box, your sphere, your plane, you can make it rotate, you can make them scale. You know, this is going to be very familiar with all Cinema 4D artists. If we take a look at it running real time inside the viewport here, we have a Lego example and we have some turbulence there on a modifier, but we also have the effector that is controlling the waves as well. So you can see how creative you can actually get with Unreal Engine, I typically tell people, since it is running fast inside the viewport, you can easily go in there and just start playing around. Like, you have the freedom to experiment, and this will take it one step further with the cloner tool. I know this is something that I personally have been really asking for a couple of years. There's been a couple of things on the marketplace that were similar, but actually having it built inside of Unreal Engine 5, I think it takes it one step beyond, and this is going to really attract a lot of motion graphics artists that have been on the fence using Unreal Engine 5, because this is going to be very familiar for a lot of you guys out there and women that are used to using this stuff in your motion graphics workflow. So if we take a closer look at the attributes panel in here, you can see that we have a lot of cool force effectors in here as well. You have the flexibility to go in there, play around. You can add keyframes to these if you want to, but this is all within that cloner there. So you don't have to do a lot of special programming or anything of that nature. Just go through, run it inside your viewport. This is all running real time, so you can see exactly what you're going to get as you're playing with the attribute numbers. And if we take another look at the timeline, everything is keyframeable, so you could go through and just keyframe all the different things that you're doing within the cloner stack there, so you don't have to do any type of preview renders or anything of a lower spec. What you see is what you're going to get there inside the viewport. And I think the last feature here is going to be the icing on the cake, because this is something that has been typically a roadblock for anybody trying to use Unreal Engine for motion graphics, and that's going to be the font selector. So I feel like this is huge in there, because this is something that was typically kind of difficult to get through and change out your fonts inside of Unreal Engine previously. And so just being able to go through here and actually change out the fonts that are on your system is going to be huge for anybody coming in the Unreal Engine. I know that was another big roadblock for motion graphics artists that were coming through. Maybe you're working on like trailers or main title sequences, and you typically had to use maybe like a program like Blender or Cinema and then bring in your 3D fonts. But now everything is just built inside of Unreal Engine, and it's all easy to use, which I think is a big plus. And that's going to do it for the sneak peek of Project Avalanche. Of course, as things are starting to progress and there's more updates, I'm going to definitely bring them to you. But also be on the lookout, because the beta should be coming sometime soon for more people to jump into. And then you'll be able to go through and experiment with Project Avalanche here in the near future. But until then, make sure you subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be giving you updates as I'm allowed to give them. So of course, leave me comments down below. Let me know how excited you are, or maybe even leave me some comments letting me know the type of stuff that you want to see in Project Avalanche. I know Andy over there is actually reading a lot of what you guys have been asking for, and so the team over there is actually working really hard to implement all this stuff in the Unreal Engine to make the barrier of entry very low for anybody wanting to use it for motion graphics. So of course, thank you guys for watching. Give me a big what up if you made it here to the end, and until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next video. I'll see you soon. Take care.